Crab.
You think there's something in there? Well, let's find out. Well, look at that. There's a hermit crab inside of this knobbed whelk shell. So this is kind of like our variety of shell. This, the hermit crab does not make shells. They steal it from other things. So what the original inhabitant or maker of the shell is called a knobbed whelk. And this would be our largest shell species that we have here on the island. They're very similar to conch. The difference being that these are the meat-eating variety of this type of shell, right? Conch is a vegetable eater, which is why we eat them, right? Yep. Because they eat vegetables, there's a lot less likelihood of being bad things inside them. Now, an exception to that is like we, traditionally eat pork. Pork, we have to cook at a higher temperature because we're killing or eradicating a lot of the bad stuff that could potentially be in pork because they are omnivorous, right? Now, you could do that to the meat that's inside the snail, but then it would just be rubber, right? So we don't do that, right? With conch, it's usually in fritters. They just fry it real quick, and then it's good. It's like calamari, it has a little bit of resistance, but it's not chewy. But what's inhabiting this is a three-fingered hermit crab, right? And these guys, this particular hermit crab, will be in these large shells. But they can be found in the smallest shell that we have out here. But they're the ones that would live in the largest shell. There are lots of other varieties that won't get into a big shell like this. But this is a snail that would have made this shell. Now they do get bigger, right? So actually in their full grown, they could be that big. Like a conch, right? The one you hear in the ocean, or you can blow into the horn, right? So they do get bigger. How does this get bigger? How does this get bigger? Does it like just expand? Well, the hermit crab would, but if you were the snail, how would you build a bigger shell to be this big? How would you do that? They are. So they secrete a mucus to make their shell, but how? Do they just like balloon out? This is a hard shell. Yes, they add layers from here. It keeps spinning around itself, which is why it has this spiral top, right? So things that have this point are naturally growing like that, right? To get bigger. Pretty interesting. Yeah.
They're going down here in these little puddles. This is really cool. The other group went on around the corner. I'm glad we stopped right there. I'll walk through all this. So there's two stingrays over here up against the tree. this is cool.
There was a stingray that just...
I know, we heard you. I was like, uh-oh.
It's really common to find them in these little spots.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you just shuffle your feet and you're trying to be quiet because if you...
Oh my god, that is...
It's awesome, right? They're kind of like dinner plate size. They're actually very pretty. Like purplish. They remind me of mice. They have the like point. They have their noses kind of pointed on the side, and the long tail. Yeah, they look like mice to me. Water mice. You'd be like, that's why when you're dragging your feet to stir up the sand, they hear that. Like they can sense it a lot better than noise.
Hey, Kristen. Here's a stingray. Sticking up. That's pretty cool. Get away from me. Oh, shit.
And they were laying down like this. So when the waves came over, it flipped the boat.
Oh.
And then pushed it over here. So both of these examples are operated.
That's messed up.
We could dig down, we would find a lot of boats.
Yeah.
With that red boat, they had there's the green boat, so there's still some of the green left. That thing right there.
Uh-huh.
That thing just was smashed to pieces, but that was a John boat.
Oh, wow.
So you can see what the water does over time, and you just don't know. I mean, eventually that'll be covered with sand, and you never knew it was there.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
That's crazy.
Yeah, somebody tried to cut it with a chainsaw, too, to help break it apart.
Yeah.
You know, they cut this big section out here. Let's see. Experiment. We can go in pretty shallow water in kayak, but...
All right. Sandbar out here is cool.